Hello and welcome to this new video here on the channel. As you might have noticed, it's again a little bit of a different video. Yesterday, if you're watching this video on release, yesterday Herpa once again had a Instagram live stream that was in connection with Herpa's Digital Open Days. And there was some information coming out there, some of it quite interesting, some of it maybe perhaps a bit of repetition, but I have once again sat down and I have noted down everything that was said, at least everything that we could understand, because unfortunately there were some massive issues with the audio, so huge chunks were just inaudible, but I've really listened to it carefully one more time and tried to sort out all the information that came out there. And basically everything that you need to know is in these papers. And I have also taken a few chunks of the live stream so you can hear their answers to it, and the rest I've just summarized because otherwise the video will get very long. All right, so the first clip I will show you is actually basically their introduction, but it was actually quite interesting because they did start talking about the general situation of Herpa, especially of course in these days with Corona still having a huge impact on the company and what they're able to do. Unfortunately, during this part, there started being some audio issues. I will show you as much as I can from that clip, and the rest I have written down here, so you will get all the information that they gave us. So let's just listen into what they have to say.
So first of all, thanks for your time. Thanks for stopping by in front of your computers. At least in that format, we can exchange questions, ideas you might have, complaints. I'm sure there are one or two complaints out there. Hopefully we can solve some of that and explain a few of these things. What we've just been talking about are some of the delays we've been having due to the Corona, to the COVID-19 situation. That simply causes a lot of delays in finally getting the product onto the market. First of all, we did have the delays with the communication with our airline partners.
All right, so what they started talking about here was, of course, the difficulties they've had in keeping and maintaining contact with airlines, which of course is necessary for them to be able to actually get licenses. And obviously this has been a huge challenge during Corona because airlines have been busy with a lot of other things. Some other things they went into was rising costs in logistics. Obviously, Herpa produces their models in China, so they need to be shipped to Europe. They mentioned that a container used to cost them around $800 and now perhaps $10,000 if they can even get capacity on a container for shipping their models from China to Europe. They even mentioned that they had some issues sometimes of containers arriving in Germany, in Hamburg, but then it would take them 2 or 3 weeks to get that container to Herpa in Dietenhofen. I did ask them a question if they had ever considered maybe moving production back to Europe, but unfortunately they did not go into that. But hey, if Herpa listens, why not try that? Then you wouldn't have these issues. But anyway, what they also mentioned was that they had gotten in a large shipment now. Obviously, the last few months there have basically not been any releases. I mean, just a few small drops here and there, but nothing that compares to all the models that had actually been announced and should have been released. But they mentioned they had a big shipment that had arrived, which means that in July, so this month, they are 99% sure that they can drop 26 to 27 models, which is a huge drop if that actually goes through. There might even be more models coming in July. I'm not sure that I'm that big fan of such a huge drop at once, but I can also understand that they just want to get the models out now as soon as they have them. All right, let's take a look at the other things they had to say, because what they also started talking about was the infamous Cargolux retro colors.
The question was about the Cargolux 747 and the retro colors. Difficult to say at this moment what we will be doing. There are a few options going. This is one of the models that just really happens to follow into the category SHI happens. Everything on the approval process was correct. Why in the end the wrong fuselage mold was used, we do not know at this time. We are thinking about various solutions also with Cargolux, and we'll see and what we could do and what we can offer. What we did notice in the last 2 days at least, that there's a very big demand, a lot of inquiries from retailers here, reaching us here at Herpa, asking specifically for this wrong model, assumingly that people want to purchase this perhaps, or want to secure their model perhaps, thinking that the model might be of more value later on. I don't really know, but we'll find something. We'll let everybody know about what we can do to solve the situation in the future.
All right, so some interesting points here. I mean, he said that in the approval process they had the correct mold and they don't understand how this could happen. But I have to question this answer, this explanation, because he mentioned it earlier. They get the aircraft models from China shipped to Dietenhofen, and from there they then dispatch them to all the different shops and retailers. Did no one look at the shipment that arrived in Dietenhofen? Did no one notice that the entire shipment was wrong? That is something I still do not understand. And if they noticed it, why did they even ship it out to shops? This is the disconnect. This is the thing that just doesn't make sense for me. And I would wish that Herpa would have a better explanation for that. He mentioned that there was a high demand. Well, I mean, sure. He said that there might be some people speculating on this model becoming very valuable because of this mistake. And that might be the case. On the other hand, Herpa, what you need to understand is you released the model. It was pretty much sold out before it hit the shops, because it was delayed by so much that the pre-orders pretty much ate up all the models that you produced. So it's not surprising that people are asking for it, because they cannot find it in shops, because all the models that were available, they're gone because of pre-orders. And no one knows or knew what your plans were, if you would ever re-release the model or do anything about it. And I know a lot of people were very excited, me included, about this aircraft model because of this special livery. So I think maybe you are overestimating how much people actually want this model because of the mistake. I think it's more because they just would like to have the model. But I think if anyone had the choice between the model in the correct mold and the wrong mold, I think pretty much everyone would choose the correct one. But they say they are working on something and they want to keep us updated. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm very curious as to how they want to keep people updated. But yeah, we look forward to that.
Then more Spanish airlines.
I hope so. The problem with Spanish airlines at the moment is that it seems like every airline now belongs to IAG, to the International Airline Group. That's formed by Iberia, British Airways. We have Welling inside the group now. We have Level. Air Europa is now, at the moment, part of it. There's a bit of a legislation issue with the EU, if that's going to be allowed or not. So that is a bit of an issue at the moment, because IAG now wants to basically concentrate all the agreements for all the airlines inside the group under one big agreement. And unfortunately, one big agreement means one huge amount of time. At the moment, we're trying to still work with the individual airlines to get new products out there. We'll have to see if IAG moves forward, or if we can still continue working with the individual airlines, which we would prefer.
All right, so interesting point here. Most airlines in Spain obviously owned by IAG. IAG wants to move forward with a general agreement for all airlines within the IAG. And Herpa would prefer to have individual licenses. I'm not sure I quite understand why they would prefer that, but that's what they say. So that's of course what we have to go with. And I know there have been also over the time a lot of people asking for more Air Europa models. He kind of mentioned it here. given that Air Europa is kind of in limbo at the moment. Their IAG wants to buy them, it's not been approved yet, and as long as that is not clear, I wouldn't expect any Air Europa models from Herpa wings.
Iceland A321 Neo in English, please. In English.
Icelandair?
Play Iceland.
Play Iceland, genau. Aber Icelandair hat ja momentan mehr mit 747. Okay, Icelandair, since I've talked about it anyway, Icelandair 737, that's probably also a topic. We do have something planned there for 2022, not for this year anymore, unfortunately, again, also in that case. And we are in touch with the new Icelandic airline and hope to come to a conclusion, an agreement with them very soon. They are very interested in models from us, and we hope that we can also do that with some models for our retail program.
All right, so you heard it. Great news for anyone who likes airlines from Iceland. Icelandair 737 MAX, very likely for 2022, and Play, they're having contact with the airline, and they apparently seem to be very keen on getting models made. So that could also be something for next year. Then there was a multitude of questions regarding GSE. I've taken out one little bit. Again, there were a lot of these questions that I cannot really show you the answer because the audio is just inaudible. But I've taken a little chunk out and I have noted down all the other things they mentioned. So I'll let you know just after this little bit.
And another question, new GSE.
In 1 to 500, I guess. By English or?
English, yeah.
English. Well, I'm not exactly sure about new vehicles as such. We are, we are planning 1 or 2 new vehicles. We've been holding back that information just because we need to figure out we need to find a solution for 1 or 2 different things first. But some accessory that I at least can talk about, which we can derive from this here is, I hope the camera can see this. This is the jet blast barriers that we are now offering in the 1 to 200 scale. They are individual elements that you can just snap onto each other. And we will be, or are currently developing the same deflectors in the 1 to 500 scale. Mm-hmm. So that is something that we can hopefully in a couple of months have in stores. So that's at least something new for the more short term that we can offer. And medium to long term, we are looking into various cargo support vehicles in the 1 to 500 scale. Besides that, there's not so much GSE out there or ground equipment in the 1 to 500 scale that we haven't done in one form or the other. If there is something out there that we are completely missing out on, just please let us know. Maybe we're overlooking something completely, might be.
All right. So as we could hear here in this clip, they're working on blast fences. Maybe not the first thing I would have gone for if I was Herpa, but okay, anything helps. And it did sound like this could also be something already for this year, although given that we haven't seen anything in the recent announcements from Herpa Wings, I would assume at the earliest for November, December. But let's see. They did, however, talk about some other things. The last point he came here with was that they said that they had pretty much covered most of the things. And that's true, but it's so many years ago. And please, Herpa, understand that just because you've done it once, like 10 years ago, it doesn't mean that we don't want it today. There's so many new collectors that haven't bought that stuff. And the only way to get on it or get that is to go to eBay. And when we look at the prices there, I mean, you should see that there is a demand when stuff from 10, 15, 20 years ago goes for exuberant prices. I mean, we're talking a price hike that is in a few 100%. Then you should understand there is a huge demand. And just because you've done it before doesn't mean you shouldn't do it again. They did then also mention, they were asked about catering trucks, about the standard catering trucks, not the A380s. And they did say that they were looking into that and this could be something for 2022. Whether this is a completely new developed catering truck or just based on the previous ones we've seen, they did not say. They did say that they were planning on some stuff for medium to long term. So that, I mean, we know what that means with Herpa. That can mean the next 10 years. They did also mention or were asked about accessories for the Beluga, and they did kind of hint at that this was one of the things they currently were working on, although again I would not expect it for this year. All right, then there was another question, and that was regarding Lufthansa and their Dreamliners, which they're about to receive, I think already this year, and if Herpa is planning to do a model on that. So let's hear what they have to say.
Dann Lufthansa Dreamliner, kommt kurzfristig in die Flotte oder schafft ihr auch kurzfristig ein Modell?
Kurzfristig ist dehnbar, nur so viel wir
arbeiten. Das bei den Lieferketten, ja?
Ja. Aber wir arbeiten schon seit einiger Zeit dran, sagen wir es mal so. Und wird also kommen, also das glaube ich, soweit kann man das bestätigen. Wann genau werden wir noch sehen müssen.
All right, so they answered this one in German. Basically, they were asked if they had any short-term plans on releasing such a model. Funnily enough, they said that short-term is a vague term, which I guess for Herpa is very true. So don't expect it for this year. I would think it is very unlikely, if at all, then for November, December. But they mentioned many times that their production schedule for this year was filled up. So I don't think we will definitely get a Dreamliner Lufthansa model from Herpa Wings in 500, but I just don't see it this year, at least not from what they had to say here. Then the next topic that came up was the CRJ. They recently released a Lufthansa CRJ 900, which has come at a quite frankly ridiculous price. They had a lot of things to say about this and in general smaller aircraft types for models. I don't think they really became that specific about any of it, but I think it's worth listening to the entire answer they had to say, and then we can talk about it afterwards.
We were simply forced to increase prices, retail prices, the last couple of months due to rising costs on basically all ends. We talked about the logistics issue. I mean, if a container instead of $800 costs all of a sudden $10,000, and we did not see an end. We've had various talks with our forwarding partners, with new forwarders, and there's no end on that side. Raw materials are going up. That's a topic I think everywhere. So we're not just talking about rising costs and limited availability of high-tech chips or whatever, but we're even talking about very basic things such as paper. We had a model just now recently, for example, that was finished for 3 weeks, but we couldn't get the paper from the printed box from the printer because the paper was missing. Prices are going up for, as I said, for basically all the raw materials. We do have also the licensing side, which is not to be underestimated. We have increased license fees basically from all our partners. It seems that a lot of airlines are trying to compensate at least a little bit of the losses they had through the Corona situation with higher licensing fees. We're basically right now renegotiating every contract, every royalty paying contract we have, and trying to avoid additional license fees on that side. That's also part of it. And the CRJ, and that's the problem basically with all these very small, tiny models, just like the Dornier 328 that we were just talking about to the small size, or the CRJ 700. It's a long but very slim model, but basically the work you put into it is pretty much the same as if it was a much larger 737, 757, or even almost a 767. It's just the material that is different, and the printing basically is roughly the same. We're still talking on the CRJ, the Lufthansa. We're talking about 50 plus imprints, and we have basically the same number of imprints on a 757. It's just tiny, and that makes it difficult. You know, the relation between the size and the price. That's always what makes it difficult also for us to develop new smaller models. I mean, I get a lot of inquiries also for Saab models, in the 500 scale, SAP 2000 and SAP 340s, which are pretty cool, but they're also on the tiny end of things. I think the SAP 340, maybe, I don't know, I have to guess now, but I assume it's less than 4 centimeters long. But it's still basically, and especially even if you have propellers, it's basically more parts even than if we do a 737, which is basically almost twice the size. It's just really, I mean, it's the same amount of work. It's actually more because you have to work more precisely because the parts are much smaller. It's just the raw material, the zinc basically, which is less. So that does explain a bit more. The CRJ is a slim model. It looks a very small model, but it's just the same amount of work.
So you did come quite a bit around with this answer. Of course, it is a smaller model, which means that they need to work more precisely. This might mean that they have more models that are discarded during production, which of course will also add to the price of the model. But I have one question for Herpa, and I'm sad that they didn't go into that, because he mentioned that it was a challenge to find the right price for small models compared to larger models, or that it was difficult to explain that a small model could cost as much as a big model. But for decades, this didn't seem to be an issue. For decades, these smaller models were always quite a bit cheaper than larger aircraft types. So what has changed? Why has it not been an issue for, I mean, we're talking, Herpa has existed for more than 25 years now, and all that time, it never seemed to be an issue. So why is it now suddenly an issue? That is what I don't understand, and which unfortunately they didn't come into with this answer. And we continue a little bit on this of giving us answers, but not really answering. Because there was a question which I loved, because I've been criticizing it a lot. And that was the front landing gear of the A320. They're fragile and they're just not true to scale. And I've been questioning in countless reviews why this needs to be like this.
Müsste ich mir sehr im Detail erstmal angucken. Bewusst haben wir nichts geändert. Wir haben einmal zwischendurch das Material verändert, um stabiler zu machen. Das müsste ich jetzt einfach mir wirklich mal näher angucken, was da der wirkliche Grund dafür ist.
So he answered it in German, and what he basically said was that they don't think they have changed anything. They did something some time ago, but to make the landing gear more sturdy, which I don't see, and that he would have to look into it to see if there had been any change. And I'm sorry, you're the product manager. Of course you know if there is something with the landing gear. Of course you know that it looked different if you don't, then I'm sorry, then I don't know what you're managing. So I don't believe you. I mean, look, I'm always happy that Herpa is doing these live streams because, and they're also taking difficult questions. So we have to recognize that and we have to applaud them for that. That's great. But I just don't believe when he says that they don't, or that he doesn't know that there has been any changes to the landing gear, because obviously there have been changes to the landing gear. I mean, we can see it. So yeah, this answer I think was quite the blow. Most of the time I'm happy with what they're saying. I mean, I'm just happy that they're talking about stuff. But I think this was really the most disappointing answer of the entire live stream, to basically deny any knowledge about what's going on with their products. I think it's a bit weak. All right, so that was basically all I wanted to show you from the live stream, or at least everything I can show you. I mean, you even noticed much of the time the image were freezing up. And the rest of the time the audio was just so bad that there's no point in showing you any of that or making you listen to that. But I have summarized some of the other points. What also was talked about was military GSE. They seem very hesitant to that, so I think that is very unlikely. Austrian Airlines, new contact is established with the airline, which is great. They're apparently already working on 1 or 2 models, but do not expect it before 2022. Then there was a question regarding African models. Unfortunately, the audio was here extremely bad, so for most of the time it just cut out. But from what I could hear was that it sounded like they were working on some stuff, and I also hear it could be something for 2022. Aegean Airlines in the new livery, and that was a definite yes. That's great news. They didn't mention when, but it perhaps maybe already November, December. That would be at least be very, very cool if so. Then they had a few models on the desk in front of them. Unfortunately, it was pretty much impossible to see what it was. But one of the models was of SkyUp, which is a Ukrainian low-cost carrier. And they already had a model of it, which is really, really awesome. And by the way, if you hear any banging at the moment, it's because there are some builders just next to me. I don't know if the microphone will pick it up, but if I want to get the video out as soon as possible, I just have to work through this. So I do apologize for that. But anyway, they were talking about SkyUp, a Ukrainian low-cost carrier. They even had already an aircraft in delivery. It was in a special livery of Shakhtar Donetsk, a football club in the Ukraine. And this will be a release for November, December this year. So this is awesome, a completely new airline that they have never featured before. Then there was a question regarding aircraft from South America. Also here, unfortunately, the audio was very bad. LATAM they did talk about, but I just could not make out what they were saying. But from what I could gather, they want to make more LATAM models, but the big challenge at the moment is that LATAM is reconsolidating their fleet. So they have challenges in finding out which aircraft types will remain in the fleet and which will be going. And that's why they at the moment just cannot start a project, because they don't know if the aircraft model they will want to make as a model will also still be in the active fleet once the model will be ready. Then they asked about or talked about GOL, so GOL, the Brazilian low-coster, and a 737 MAX will be coming. So that's great news here as well. And they also said that Azul will also get more models in the future. Then let's see, what else do we have? They talked also about military models in general, and what they mentioned here specifically was the C5 and the C17. There will definitely be new variants of that in 2022. That's what they said at least. And in general, military aircraft will be featured every now and then, but mostly transport aircraft. They were also asked about the Anadolu jet, which has been announced and should have been released, I believe, already a few months ago. But they were saying that this model should be in shops by July, at the latest in August. So this could be one of these models, one of these 26 to 27 models they talked about earlier, that should be hitting stores very, very soon. Then they were asked about Sky Express, a Greek airline that used to fly pretty much only regional traffic within Greece, but have started now flying across Europe with their newly acquired Airbus A320neos. However, their answer was very disappointing. They basically said that they had not even thought about that, which I find is very strange. If you have anything to do with aviation and are into European aviation, I think many people have been looking forward to Sky Express, seeing the aircraft in their new liveries. So I'm surprised that Herpa hasn't even given it a thought, which I think will also mean that if at all we get models from them, it will take a long time before we can see anything there. Then a bit of news for Scandinavian collectors. Jet Time, a Danish airline that went bankrupt during Corona and basically now has been resurrected. And there was a question regarding that, if they would be making a 737 model of Jet Time. And the, for me at least, surprising answer was that we're actually trying to get contact. So they even know about the airline, which I didn't think they did. But apparently they're trying to get in contact and trying to make something happen there. Although again, I would think at the earliest in 2022, perhaps later. And then finally, there were two more questions, and the first one was about the Tupolev 154. They're currently having 4 models in production, and all of them seem to be pretty much ready to go. So I do believe if you like the Tupolev 154, then there will be something coming. I mean, the models that have been announced, basically, they should be hitting stores very soon. And then the last question I would like to highlight here is the 777X was also asked about, and basically if they would be doing the 777X with the movable winglets, and in scale 500 I should also add, and that is, I think, pretty much a definite no. They will not be doing that. They did not have much success with attempts on doing stuff like that, and so if you had hope for that, then movable winglets, definitely no. Perhaps they will do it with fixed wings in the ground position, but I honestly speaking doubt it. And you shouldn't expect any 777Xs for the near future, because Herpa also mentioned that they pretty much will stay clear of that aircraft type until it's actually really in the air, so basically with airlines, because the program obviously has huge delays. Now, there were many other things that were talked about, but there are too many to be mentioned in this video, because otherwise it will get far too long. But I have noted everything down, at least everything that I could understand, because as I mentioned, there were some audio issues. And you can find that list and a short summary of what they said about each point in the video description below. So I hope that will also give you a little bit more insight as to what was talked about. Herpa did mention that they planned to upload the or leave the live stream up on their Instagram page. I'm not sure they actually do it because of the audio issues, but if they have left the live stream online, I will also link to that in the video description below, so that you can watch the original live stream if you care for that. All right, guys, so this is pretty much all that I could get out of the live stream, all that I could figure out they were working on and talking about. If you have enjoyed this kind of content, if you have liked or appreciate to get a summary of the live stream instead of having to watch the entire live stream, then I would be very happy if you left a like. That would not just help out this video, but also just the channel in general. And of course, if you are new around here, I would also appreciate it very much if you would subscribe. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.